On today's Locked On Giants podcast, General Manager Joe Schoen spoke to reporters down at the NFL league meetings. What did he have to say, and what are our takeaways from what he had to say? That's all coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Trainer, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, folks. On today's show, General Manager Joe Schoen spoke to reporters at the NFL meetings, so I was able to get some audio for that, also some of the key quotes, and I have some thoughts about what he had to say, so I'm going to just kind of run down the key points and also kind of fill in some of the blanks for you based on what he had to say. So we'll start off obviously talking about the quarterback situation, then segment 2, we'll talk about Neal, and then we'll wrap things up with other concerns and takeaways that arose from what Joe Schoen had to say. So that's our schedule. Let's get into it. All right, the quarterback situation. This is a big one. It's been a big one. It will continue to be a big one until the Giants land their franchise quarterback. The main takeaway that Joe Schoen had to say is that they will not force a quarterback at number 3 overall. All right, now, Joe Schoen, as you would expect, is going to do due diligence. All right, he's going to probably make a call to the Titans and say, hey, what are you guys thinking about as far as maybe a trade? I would fully expect the Titans are going to want multiple first-round picks, which is going to basically discourage the Giants from making a trade up. But as I have been saying all along, the Giants are not necessarily going to take a quarterback if they stay at number 3. All right, and if I wasn't convinced strongly of that being the case before today, I am definitely convinced that that is going to be the case. And not just because, Schoen basically spelled it out without spelling it out, but, I go back to what I said about if you look at how this offseason unfolded, and all signs kind of pointed to how the Giants felt about this quarterback class. All right. So by that, obviously, I've mentioned Matthew Stafford, with the fact that the Giants were ready to trade away draft assets and pay Matthew Stafford. All right, folks, I'm telling you now, had that gone through, that would not have been for a one-year affair. All right. Matthew Stafford probably would have come in here, probably would have been the starter for at least 2 years, maybe even longer. All right. Even though, 37 years old, I know a lot of people made a big deal about that, but look, he's 37. Russell Wilson, I believe, is 37. Aaron Rodgers, 41. With a quarterback, age is not that big of a deal. It's more of a bigger deal for guys who are closer to the trenches, perhaps, but not necessarily for quarterbacks. All right. So when the Giants went basically all out to get Matthew Stafford, and they didn't, that right there was the first sign that maybe they were lukewarm on this quarterback class. But as, is the process, they continue to do due diligence. All right. So they went to the pro days, and they still have Colorado's pro day coming up. They had top 30 visits with some of these quarterbacks. I know for a fact that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders were in to see the Giants. I believe Jackson Dart was in as well. Though I didn't get confirmed, but I think he was. Somebody had told me that he did come in. So the Giants, they did their due diligence. And Joe Schoen basically said, look, we have guys come in for due diligence because you never know down the line. Maybe, there's an opportunity to sign some of these guys and you want to have kind of a file on them so that you know what you might potentially be getting if these guys become available. Now, where did Aaron Rodgers fit into this whole thing? Folks, Aaron Rodgers, as we are seeing, doesn't just make snap decisions. He's the type of guy who wants to come in, who wants to explore every little nook and cranny of a situation before he commits. All right. To my knowledge, Aaron Rodgers never made a visit to the Giants. Now, were there conversations with his people and the Giants once he was released by the Jets? I believe that to be true. But it never got to the point where there was a visit plan. Whereas with the Steelers, there was a visit that came up, which according to a report, I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody reported that Aaron Rodgers actually initiated that visit. It wasn't the Steelers initiating it. So that being said, that right there told us that Rodgers was not really a consideration. It was just, look, let's do due diligence. He's out there. Let's see if maybe, there's an interest, maybe there's a fit. If not, we move on. All along, folks, the target was Russell Wilson. All right. Why do I say that? You had the visit last year that didn't materialize into a contract. You had the visit this year. And interestingly enough, Shane, in speaking to the reporters, said that when Russell Wilson came in to see the Giants this year, there was an offer made to him. All right. Now, it took 11 days for Russell Wilson to sign that offer. So what does that tell you guys? Well, it tells you that it was about the money. That's why it took so long for Russell Wilson to sign with the Giants. Now, is it possible that the fact that the Giants signed Jameis Winston before signing Russell Wilson, that maybe that kind of nudged Russell Wilson a little bit to work out the money with the Giants? That's certainly a possibility, right? I don't have any proof of that. I'm just kind of, guessing on that one. But usually that's how it works because, Russell Wilson, the only other interest he really had was from Cleveland. And Cleveland had traded for Kenny Pickett. Cleveland is in a position, if they want Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, whichever one of those falls to two, they can get a quarterback. So there wasn't really as pressing a need, I think, for Cleveland to get something done with Russell Wilson as there was for the Giants. So the Giants kind of waited that whole scenario out. In the end, they got Winston, who is going to be the backup. They got Wilson, who is going to be the starter. And that's something Joe Schoen said. He said in the springtime, Russell Wilson is going to take the first team reps in the OTAs. And, we'll see. I mean, they're good. Brian Dable will probably say that it's going to be a competition, but you pretty much know that Wilson's probably going to be the guy unless something totally unexpected happens. So Wilson is going to be the starter. Winston, who, by the way, spoke to the media on Monday after officially signing his contract, he will be the backup. And oh boy, let me tell you something, just a side note here. Winston is everything as advertised as far as his personality. Just a very effervescent personality, kind of the opposite of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a little bit more reserved and I don't want to say quiet, but a little more introverted, whereas Jameis Winston's got this big, bold personality that just leaves you smiling. He was just hilarious during the video call that he had. But anyway, going back to the quarterback. So does this mean that the Giants will not draft a quarterback? Folks, I don't think that is necessarily true. Okay. I do think that they will not draft a quarterback in round one. Will they pick up a quarterback somewhere on day two? I can see that happening. It's interesting. Joe Schoen mentioned the top 105 players. All right. The usually it's the top 100. He mentioned 105. All right. I think the Giants are within that range there. So I would expect somewhere in that range on day two, probably, for the Giants to grab a quarterback who will be a developmental project. All right. Somebody who, as I've been saying all along, he's somebody who will come in, they'll develop him. He'll sit this year. It'll be a redshirt year, if you will. Learn behind Wilson, learn behind Winston, and, just go from there. All right. Now, speaking of, learning from Winston, I'm going to play for you a little later on in the program a clip. I actually asked Winston, I said, you know, looking back on your career, what is the one lesson that you learned that you feel that you could share with a rookie prospect if one comes in? And he really gave me a really good answer. I mean, I was really happy with the answer. It was a long answer. It was very insightful. So I'm going to play that for you in segment 3 of this program, just to share that with you in case you missed it. So the Giants, again, quarterback situation, Joe Schoen is not going to force it. John Mara, when he spoke to the media, he talked about the quarterback not having a franchise quarterback. But it's interesting because I put an article up on New York Giants on SI quoting Sean Payton of the Denver Broncos. And the reason why I quoted Sean Payton is because he also spoke about Winston and Wilson, having coached both of them. And he was asked about the quarterback situation. Are you glad that you don't have to take a quarterback this year? And he was very glad. All right. So if Sean Payton is saying that, and we all know what a whiz with quarterbacks Sean Payton can be, I have a feeling he's not alone in their feelings, if you will, about this year's quarterback class. So the Giants, the franchise quarterback might have to wait at least another year unless they get lucky with a day 2 pick. I don't think they'll go to day 3 for a quarterback, but you never know. You never know. I mean, the bottom line is Shane set everything up in such a way that they don't have to force a pick at number 3 for the quarterback. So, all right, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about Evan Neal and that how that kind of is unfolding. Basically the way I thought it would, but we'll talk about that right after this. Hey, Giant fans, ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so that you stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So go on, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL to get 50% off your first year. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And folks, coming up on the Locked On Giants podcast, I've got Jordan Reed coming up this week. I've already started interviewing our Locked On college hosts to get their take on some of these prospects. So I've spoken already to Locked On Syracuse. I've got Locked On Buffaloes, the Colorado Buffaloes. I've got Penn State coming up. So I've reached out, kind of trying to get a sense of, the top draft picks and who the Giants might, go for at number 3 or in that first round whenever they do draft, and just kind of get a sense of some of these prospects. And what I'm finding when I talk to our college hosts is that we're learning about players that maybe aren't being mentioned. So it's something that I hope you guys will enjoy, and we'll roll those out. I mean, there's so much coming up here on Locked On Giants, and I hope you will tune in. All right, let's talk now about Evan Neal. All right, Joe Schoen basically, alluded to the fact that Evan Neal is indeed going to cross-train at guard. Now, again, this is not a surprise. I reported this way back when, okay? I mentioned the reason why the Giants did not make that move last year was because it was twofold, all right? Part of it was Evan Neal just felt that he was a tackle, right? And I don't think he was very interested in playing guard. He has since had a change of heart from what I understand. Now, also playing a part of that is that last year they had intended to cross-train Evan Neal, but because he was coming off of the ankle injury and he had the setback that he did in the spring that cost him half, or actually more than half of training camp, they never got a chance to initiate the cross training. Okay, so for cross training, they basically have to do it on the field. They can't just sit in the classroom and show them a step by step illustration of how to play guard. You have to do it on the field with the reps. So Evan Neal never got that opportunity. And by the time he was deemed healthy to return, it was too late. So basically, they had to roll with him at guard. But he was, he did start to see some snaps from what I understand. And the plan was that, to cross train him this coming spring. Now, they're not going to pick up the option year in his rookie deal. I would be absolutely stunned if they do. I don't anticipate they will. But they are going to try to salvage that. And again, you look at the clues and you see how, Jermaine Illuminor is back. Andrew Thomas will be back. Hopefully he'll stay back and be healthy. They signed 2 tackles to compete for the swing tackle role, right? And Stone Forsythe and James Hudson III. So the handwriting was on the wall. And it was just a matter of, okay, convincing Evan Neal to buy into the idea of cross-training to guard. Now, I don't know how those conversations might have gone, but if you're Evan Neal and you see the market that guards are getting in free agency, you have to say to yourself, okay, maybe I'm not thinking correctly with this insistence that I stay at tackle. And I think that's probably what happened, why Evan Neal might have in the past been reluctant to move to guard. Now, some of you have asked me, well, why didn't they start this earlier? Why wait until his 4th year? Folks, it was a matter of injuries. Evan Neal, he's basically had injuries galore. All right. Some of which, he's had a playthrough that I don't think were publicized. Like I know one year he had an elbow and I think he had, obviously he had the ankle injury, but he had a whole slew of injuries that he had to try and fight through. And, just everything kind of came to a head with him to where it was like tackle or bust. And, we know the story. I mean, you guys know the story, what happened there and the outbursts and just the whole optics of the situation. But Evan Neal, to his credit, I think he has realized that, you know what, let's just, see if we can be the best version of me that I can. And if that means moving inside and playing guard, not the end of the world. So I think maybe, if there's anything good to come of this, it's that Evan Neal matured and realized that, hey, not the end of the world if I play guard. So, I found that kind of interesting with Evan Neal. So that being said, if he doesn't work out, obviously the Giants brought back Greg Van Roten. Right now, Van Roten is the incumbent, so he will probably start off the spring as the starting right guard, but there will be a competition between Neal, between Van Roten. I suspect Aaron Stinney will be in that mix. I suspect Jay Kubas will be in that mix. So ideally, you would like to see Evan Neal, a former first-round pick, win that job. Whether he does, that remains to be seen. All right. So the Giants kind of protected themselves just in case Evan Neal doesn't work out at guard. And again, they're probably not going to pick up his option year that will allow him, if he does well at guard, to go out and maybe get the type of payday that Mekhi Becton got, moving from the Eagles to, I believe Mekhi went to the Chargers, I want to say. So he went and he got himself a nice payday in free agency just by making the move inside to tackle. So I think Evan Neal is kind of hoping that is what happens with him moving forward. So we'll see how that works out. But I think, Evan Neal is going to be a little bit better fit inside at guard, just getting him outside, away from the island and putting him in a phone booth. I think that's going to better suit his skill set. But we'll see, It's all a matter of how much work he's willing to put in to the process. And, again, they have backups if it doesn't work. So stay tuned. That's all I can say regarding that. All right, coming up next, some final thoughts and takeaways about what Joe Schoen had to say. I've got one concern, though, I've got to mention in the next segment regarding how this free agency period has unfolded. And then I'm going to play for you that clip from Jameis Winston responds to my question about what he has learned in his career that he can maybe share with a rookie quarterback if one comes in. So don't go anywhere, folks. I'll have that for you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on all the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And coming up tomorrow, we're going to hear from Locked On Syracuse, Jackson Holzer. He's going to tell us about the Orangemen. So Kyle McCord was the topic. Oronde Gadsden II was a topic. We talked about a whole bunch of players. So that will be tomorrow. Then let's see, on Thursday, we will hear from Jordan Reed, one of the draft analysts over at ESPN, old friend. He's been on the show before, but that was way before he joined ESPN. So he's coming on Thursday, And then on Friday, I think we're going to have the Penn State programs. So the Penn State, obviously we'll look at Abdul Carter, what's going on with him, and we'll look at Tyler Warren and some other, prospects. And then hopefully by next Monday, assuming, I don't have to push anything back with the shows, we'll be able to look at Colorado, Travis Hunter, Shiloh Sanders, Shador Sanders, and so forth. So that's what's coming up here on Locked On Giants. Hope people will be with us. All right, let's wrap things up here by talking about some last minute or some leftover things from what Joe Schoen had to say, and a concern, something that I'm kind of picking up on these video calls with the free agents that the Giants have brought in. The one thing that I'm hearing from these guys when they're asked about what their role is, what the coaches have told them, a lot of them just don't seem to have a definitive answer. It's kind of like, I play safety, so I'm coming in to play safety. But, are you going to be a box safety? Are you going to be a free safety or a center fielder? Are you going to, blitz? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? What exactly are you going to do? And then, quarterback, Jameis Winston, for example, today, did the coaches tell you what the plan is for you? Loose discussion, he said, but, kind of sounded unsure. Is he going to compete? Is he not going to compete? What's the story? And I just find that a little, unsettling. And the reason why I find that just a smidge unsettling is because do you not have a plan for how you're going to use these guys? Or are you just bringing in guys who play positions just to plug holes and you're going to figure it out later? That's what it sounds like the Giants have been doing. Maybe these players that, on these video calls are just not getting into the detail out of respect for, the conversations that they've had with the coaches, but I just found that kind of weird, if I'm being honest with you. So obviously we'll have to see how these guys all fit in, how they're deployed. There's any number of ways they could go with different guys, and maybe, who knows, maybe some of these guys won't even play as much as we think they might. I can't imagine Jameis Winston will play that much unless he beats out Russell Wilson for the starting job. And Russell Wilson basically told us that he expects to start. So obviously, I think he got that somewhere. And also the money would suggest that he will be the starter. But you just never know. And it just seems like, this offseason, to me, it's like bring players in and we'll figure out how we're going to use them later. And I'm not so sure I'm totally comfortable with that. I mean, you would like to think that you have a plan, how you're going to deploy different guys. And who knows, maybe, like I said, maybe these guys know a little bit more of what the plan is and they're just not telling us. But I just found that kind of interesting. I almost would rather they had said, we had that discussion with the coach and you'll just have to see how it unfolds. But anyway, so that was a big, kind of thing I wanted to mention. Now, as far as number 3, the third overall pick, if the Giants keep that, Joe Schoen basically said, look, we have set things up to where we can go in any number of directions. So to me, that's best player available. Will it be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter? I wouldn't mind if it's Abdul Carter. Okay. I also wouldn't mind if it's Travis Hunter. And some people said, well, they signed, Paulson and Debo. So where are they going to put Travis Hunter, who is, I guess, projected more as a cornerback? Folks, they'll find a way. If they are worth their money that they're earning, they will find a way to utilize his skill set. And if it means also giving him a few snaps at receiver, I'm here for it. Okay. I think Travis Hunter would be a wonderful addition to the team. I think Abdul Carter would be a wonderful addition to the team. I just would like to know, and obviously we won't find this out, but what's the story with his medicals? That would be my biggest concern with him. And that's something I'm going to talk about when I have the Locked On Nittany Lions host on the show. All right. Before we go, obviously, I promised you that clip from Jameis Winston. It was a question I posed to him in the video conference, asking him what has he learned in his career that he feels he can teach or share, rather, with a rookie quarterback if one should be brought in by the team. And here's what Jameis had to say. Jameis, there's a possibility that you might be asked to mentor a young quarterback. And I'm just wondering, when you look back on your own career, what are some of the lessons that you feel you've learned that you can share with a young quarterback?
One of the greatest experiences that I had in my NFL career was a chance to spend 1 year with Drew Brees and just pick his mind, watch his actions, and just be immersed into being an NFL quarterback and seeing what it looks like to the highest degree. And one thing that he always exhibited was consistency. He was at the same place every single time of the day. Another thing that he exemplified was resilience. He didn't let anything get in the way of his preparation, in the way of his approach. And the other thing was he kept it simple. He didn't think too much about the big things. He focused on doing small things over and over again that resulted in him having the success that he had for his entire career. So me having that experience, being in rooms with great veteran quarterbacks such as Ryan Fitzpatrick, being in rooms with now quarterbacks with Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson last year, having the chance to mentor Dorian Thomas-Robinson when he had a chance to get back in his starting role with the Cleveland Browns. I've been able to learn so many different things from my time, my career. So catering to a young quarterback and serving them would be something that I would definitely take home with a great responsibility and cherish it.
All right, Giant fans, hope you enjoyed that little clip. And that's going to do it for today's Locked On Giants podcast. So again, I want to thank you for tuning in, spending part of your day with me here. Always appreciated. Be sure to keep it here all week long. We're still 5 days a week. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. I got a lot of programming set up for you guys and gals. Hope you will check it out. As always, thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And I will see you tomorrow.